The United States is enormous. It's the third largest country by both area and population, home to nearly 350 million people. And yet, if you were to draw a line right down the middle, you'd find two totally different Americas. One is packed with sprawling, sleepless cities, but the other is a vast, empty landscape. This is the story of the powerful forces that split America in two. Why is half of the country completely empty? And hey, let's get 5,000 likes for a video on the largest, emptiest regions of the entire world. When we say empty, the scale is just insane. We're talking about massive regions where you could drive for hours and see almost nobody. Consider this. Over 80% of all Americans are crammed into cities and suburbs. These dense pockets of civilization are mostly in the eastern half of the country, especially around the Great Lakes and the coasts. But outside of those bubbles, the silence is deafening. Let's put it in perspective with a huge area some people call the empty North. This colossal stretch of land covers Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, and parts of their neighbors. It takes up almost 20% of the entire continental U.S., but is home to only around 5.6 million people. Now, compare that to a state like Massachusetts. Massachusetts has over 7 million residents squeezed into an area that's less than 1% of the size of the empty North. The difference is almost unbelievable. California alone has more people than the 21 least populated states combined. And Wyoming, our least populated state, has fewer residents than major cities like Jacksonville, Florida, or Austin, Texas. It's a place where the bison almost outnumber the people. This isn't just a fun fact. It's a massive division that has created two very different nations within one, a nation of bustling, crowded cities, and another of profound, beautiful, and often brutal emptiness. But to understand why this happened, we can't just look at a map. We have to look at the powerful forces of nature, money, and history. Three powerful forces basically conspired to create this great American divide. The first, and most undeniable, is geography and climate. Mother Nature always gets the first vote, and for a huge chunk of the American interior, she voted a hard no. A lot of this empty land is a prisoner of its own geography. The western part is dominated by the rugged, unforgiving Rocky Mountains, which naturally make it tough to build any large-scale settlements. The eastern part of this region is in the mountains' rain shadow, a phenomenon where the mountains block moisture, creating the dry, tough conditions of the Great Plains. It's a land of extremes. The climate is scientifically classified with cold, snowy winters and hot, arid summers. The winters can plunge to life-threatening temperatures, while summers can be brutally hot and bring unpredictable storms and tornadoes. It's no secret that, given the choice, Americans have consistently voted with their feet for warmer weather. The explosive growth of Sunbelt states like Florida, Texas, and Arizona isn't an accident. People love milder winters and sunnier skies. Trying to build a thriving metropolis in a place where the weather is actively trying to kill you for months on end is, to put it mildly, a tough sell. The second force is the relentless pull of economics. For generations, the story of rural America was the story of towns built around a single industry. West Virginia is a perfect and tragic example. For decades, it was a booming hub for coal. But when the coal industry collapsed, it didn't just take the jobs. It took away the entire reason for these towns to exist, leaving behind struggling communities that look like modern ghost towns. And this isn't just about coal. Across the vast interior, economic diversity is dangerously low. Outside of specific jobs in ranching, farming, or maybe tourism near a national park, high-paying careers are incredibly scarce. If you're a young person in Nebraska and you don't want to be a farmer, what do? For many, the answer is simple. You leave. The big cities offer a universe of opportunities in tech, finance, and the arts that these empty regions just can't compete with. This creates a downward spiral. People leave, so businesses have fewer customers and workers, which leads to even fewer jobs, and then more people leave. The final force is the long shadow of history. You might think the entire American West was settled at the same time, but nope, not even close. The empty North was at a huge disadvantage from the start. When places like Oregon were being settled, they had boosters. promoters who aggressively advertised the fertile land and drew in waves of people. But regions like Montana, Wyoming, and the Dakotas didn't have these early magnets. Their development was delayed, often not getting organized until the late 1800s, long after other areas had already built up a critical mass of people and infrastructure. They were playing catch-up from the beginning. Even when resources like oil were discovered, they were often harder to access than the colossal reserves in Texas. History isn't a flat playing field. The pioneers who went west followed paths of least resistance, paths carved by rivers, fertile valleys, and most importantly, economic opportunity. The empty states are often the places that were simply bypassed, left behind by the great waves of settlement that built the rest of the country. So, if people aren't living in these vast, empty spaces, where are they? The data paints a crystal clear picture. They're heading south. For years, there has been a steady migration from the north to the south, and recently, it's become a torrent. States in the Northeast like Massachusetts and New Jersey have seen a major exodus. And where are they all going? The Sun Belt is the overwhelming winner. South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia have seen some of the highest rates of people moving in from other states, drawn by better weather, a lower cost of living, and booming job markets in cities like Charlotte and Atlanta. Texas and the Mountain West have also been big winners in this national reshuffling. But this growth isn't happening everywhere. It's almost all concentrated in cities and their suburbs. While some smaller cities in the Midwest manage to grow by pulling people from even more rural areas, the truly remote counties are being left behind. The statistics are stark. A huge portion of America's rural counties have fewer people today than they did in the year 2000. This quiet crisis is driven by a cycle of young adults leaving, which leads to fewer births and an aging population left behind. Demographers call this natural decrease, where deaths outnumber births, locking these communities into a long-term decline. So while you hear headlines about a growing America, that growth is really only happening in very specific places, while other parts of the country are slowly emptying out. If you find these kinds of deep dives into how our world is shaped interesting, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next exploration. Half of America is empty isn't a simple mystery. It's a complex mix of three powerful forces. First, an unforgiving geography and harsh climate that made it a tough place to settle from day one. Second, economies built on single industries that have since faded away, failing to offer the opportunities needed to keep people around. And third, a history that gave other regions a critical head start, leaving the heartland playing a game of catch-up it could never win. The result is the divided nation we see today. A country of densely packed, thriving coastal and southern corridors, and a vast, forgotten interior. Looking to the future, it's hard to see this trend reversing. Without some revolutionary economic change or a massive shift in how we live, the forces that hollowed out the American heartland will likely continue. These beautiful, sprawling, and empty landscapes will remain a powerful testament to the currents of nature, money, and history that continue to shape the American story. If you find these kinds of deep dives into how our world is shaped interesting, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next exploration.